You're with Julian on the Brown Note and a review of The Woman King, aka Black Panther 2 Redux. The convergence of Black Panther and The Woman King is a little bit much. It's almost like they deliberately released it around that time that Black Panther 2 came out. They're both essentially films where there's an elite guard of female warriors and the story is focused on them. Dressing very similar and acting very similar. It is remarkable that two such films, even though one is actually based in reality and the other's a superhero film, the fact it came out, the director Gina Prince Bythewood, I'm sure it's called Bythewood, but it does say By the Wood, which is cool. I hated her last film, The Old Guard, with Charlize Theron. I thought that was absolute garbage. I cannot understand how that film got good reviews. Worst villain in modern movie history, and a low-budget cringe fest for me. I cannot understand how they got good reviews. So that wasn't a good start. This is a much better film, though. And it's a much better film than Black Panther 2. So we get an augmented history lesson, which is that there is the West African kingdom of Dahomey in the 17th to 19th centuries had a female fighting force, and the movie paints these women as being anti-slavery. A lot of men have stood up and said, how dare you be historically inaccurate, because both the kingdom and the female warriors facilitated slavery, and bearing on the notion of a lot of black Africans were involved in the slave trade of rival groups or just for financial purposes, so people have gone nuts about that. It has an atmosphere as a film that I wasn't taking it as a serious history lesson, and I didn't quite understand that level of animosity towards it, because, to be honest, they kind of paint the whole world they're in as being facilitating slavery. So it's kind of them reacting to themselves actually facilitating slavery. I didn't think they really, held everyone up as being oblivious to it, or, that they weren't involved at all. It kind of shows them doing it. And this fantasy storyline, which has some elements of truth, I never took to be a history lesson. It's based around Viola Davis as General Nanisca. And again, the role here is analogous to the role in Black Panther 2, which is, I can't remember her name. They're both, apart from one of them being an actual queen, Angela Bassett as Raymonda, the Sovereign Queen of Wakanda. So there are parallels. They're both powerhouse performances, and I guess that you could find both actresses in similar roles. Maybe Viola Davis in much edgier roles, but she is the centerpiece of the film and absolutely superb. She's been very strong in everything that she's been in. Everyone knows that, particularly stuff like Widows. But here the crucial thing about this film is that everyone seems on the same page to be enjoying it. Everyone seems to think this is an action adventure romp, and it is. It's a lot of fun. So we get the woman force fighting against the colonial slave trade, which is where I think they got a bit annoyed for some reason, and the wanting to break, their king wants to break with the slave trade as well. They're saying, how can we trade on our own people? We're selling our own people as slaves. I think that's John Boyega, who I slagged off as an actor continually, plays the king. He is the king to Viola Davis. He is the leader of the empire, and he wants out of slavery. He can't stomach it. I've slagged this guy off as an actor. I think it's one of his best performances. It's certainly one of his most naturalistic. I kind of liked his vibe here, and I haven't really warmed to him in most films I've seen him in. The story itself is relatively harmless. There are the usual machinations and, people being double crossed, and there's also the young girl who refuses to marry, and that's an interesting point about slave trade. She is committed to marry a local guy that tells her flat out he's going to beat her as his wife, and she tells him to F off. And so the parents give her up to this warrior clan. So she then, she's no use for marriage. She's going to become a warrior clan. The women in this clan are not allowed to have any conjugal relationships with anyone. And also, Lashana Lynch is kind of like her. So we get that's the Shuri character. Lashana Lynch is from some really big movies. She was in Widows with Viola Davis. She was the character with the cropped hair. And then I saw her in a completely different performance in Bad Times at the El Royale. Very underappreciated film. She was fantastic in that. And then she turned up in the actually really bad No Time to Die, the last Bond film. She's getting everywhere lately. So the younger character is basically the Shuri-ish character. I'm not sure which way round it's played, but honestly, it's such a good fun movie. It gets a bit wayward in the sort of the midsections, a bit paunchy, and I got a bit bored of it. But overall, it clips by a fair rate of knots, and it's got a lot of fun about it. It feels less like 12 Years a Slave than, again, Raiders of the Lost Ark. They look like they're having fun here. And I thought with the old guard, the most cringe-inducing, and I hate using this term as an FD, but the most woke film I've seen, where they actually took a Muslim man and a Jewish man and made them kiss. And I was just like, you cannot be serious. How try-hard are you? And it had the worst soundtrack I've ever heard. It was such grating Euro trash. And everything about it was just like, here's our soldiers in Iraq. They are all-female and all from different cultures. And it's just like, you really are trying very hard in this film to make something. This time around, there was none of that self-importance. Everything was on the same sort of zone of having fun. And the battles are good. Viola Davis will probably be up for a few awards. As expected, it's one of those films where, that's what it's for, is to get the actress nominations. So she'll be up for, actually, might be the first time that two action stars are up for Best Actress Oscar, with Michelle Yeoh from Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Better get a nomination. But also Viola Davis. So I understand it's the first time that there'll be two action stars. It is harmless, and it's good fun, and it's enjoyable, and it's exciting. A little bit boring at times, but for the most part, a lot of fun. So I'm going to give The Woman King a 7 out of 10.